This video is going to cover the source music from the original Star Wars trilogy. Now, source music is different than the underscore. The leitmotifs, as discussed in the last video, is part of the underscore, which is music that the audience hears, but not the characters. Basically, characters don't hear their own leitmotifs as they're walking through the screen. So, basically, that's the way that the audience relates to the characters. Source music, on the other hand, is music that the characters in the film hear. And there are different levels of source music. One level is where there's a live band that's playing, there's a party, a club scene, a concert, and there's music. And the characters hear the music either as an audience or in the background. Another level would be turning on the radio. A character turns on the radio and the source music is played. And another level even is where it's in another room or in the distance and the characters could hear the music. In Star Wars, the source music is generally played by a band. And we're going to take a look at them right now. Let's take a look at the first one that appears in A New Hope. The Cantina Band. The Cantina Band, of course, we all know, appears in the cantina scene, which is probably one of the most popular scenes in the entire film. And the Cantina Band plays two different pieces of music. The first one that they play is when Obi-Wan and Luke first enter into the cantina, and then the second one is played when they are discussing on a passage to Alderaan with Han Solo and Chewbacca, and then of course at the end of that scene when Han Solo and Greedo are discussing on how he owes money to Jabba the Hutt, and of course at that point that controversial scene of who shot first comes up, and by the way, Han shot first. So let's take a look at where these songs come from. These songs are actually something that was inspired by Benny Goodman, who is also known as the King of Swing. Basically, George Lucas wanted the cantina scene to look and feel like it was the 1940s. And he basically had in mind of having a World War II inspired type of costuming. If you look at some of the creatures, like one of them has something like a air mask. This air mask is actually designed after a World War II breathing mask. And so the creature has that part of it. And some of the other characters look like they're kind of from the 1940s as well. So if you go back and take a look at the scene, you might see that little inspiration. So Lucas wanted the music to also have that 1940s big band sound. So when he first was filming the scene, he used Benny Goodman's recording of Sing 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 as a temp track. Sing 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 is actually a cover that he did. He recorded in 1939. A very popular song at the time period. And so that's the one that basically George Lucas took and used as a temp track. And when he took the scene to John Williams, who is actually a jazz-trained pianist and really knows about jazz very well, could recreate jazz music. So what he did is he took this cut and used it as his inspiration to create the Cantina Band number 1 and Cantina Band number 2 pieces, since there's 2 pieces. So if you listen to them, they're very much inspired by it. Some people say it sounds exactly like it, but if you go and listen to it, it doesn't sound like it. It does have that big band feel to it, but nevertheless, this is where it comes from. And it's really interesting. I actually kind of knew this for many years. Back in my early college years, when I was studying orchestration and arranging, my teacher was the director of the jazz band. And so, therefore, I had a big band jazz at my disposal to orchestrate for. So I orchestrated and arranged 100 pieces. Yes, you heard me right, 100. You have to do at least 100 in order to learn on how to orchestrate. So I orchestrated and arranged 100 pieces for this band, and one of them was the Cantina Band, which was actually performed as well. And at the time of the rehearsal, one of the old timers in the band explained that the Cantina Band comes from a Benny Goodman cut. And I go, really? That's interesting. And I never knew that. I mean, I knew it had a jazz feel to it. I mean, everyone could hear that, but I never knew it came from something specific. Um, but John Williams, being who he is, he can take a temp track and recreate it into something new, into what the director wants. And so, him being able to work with George Lucas very well was able to successfully create a sound that George Lucas was looking for. But at the same time, if you really listen to it, it does have kind of an out of this time and place sound to it. Not very exotic, but kind of exotic at the same time. But in any case, it is a very popular piece of music that is iconic in the um, society and in culture today. Let's move on to the next source music. Now, The Empire Strikes Back has no source music at all. We go all the way to Return of the Jedi. Now, source music is only used when it's needed. And obviously, there was no scenes in Empire Strikes Back, so it was not needed. In the Jabba the Hutt palace, there was source music because there was a band that played during, I don't know, I guess you can call it a party scene or whatever scene it was. Jabba the Hutt was obviously always partying. But, anyways, there was a band called Cy Snoodles and the Rebo Band. And the piece of music that was composed is titled Lepti Nick, or Neek. I've heard it pronounced both ways. It is a song that was composed using the lyrics in the language of Huttese. A language was created literally for the film to make it really very realistic. And this language was used to create the lyrics, which John Williams took and composed the music, which was also arranged by his son Joseph Williams, who worked on the project as well. Joseph, I have never known until very recently, is also the lead singer of the rock band Toto. He wasn't the original lead singer back in the 70s, but he joined the band shortly after Return of the Jedi or shortly around the same time period, became really popular with the band. And he also went on to composing films as well. So he literally has followed in the footsteps of his father. Now, there's been many arrangements done of this song. John Williams and George Lucas meant or thought that they could make this song a chart song that would go into the dance charts and make a single out of it and become really popular. So there were different arrangements made. Unfortunately, it never actually made it in the charts in the United States and in many other countries. I guess maybe because most people were not looking for a song in Huttese, maybe. I don't know. It did become popular in Thailand, but other than Thailand, it was not popular in many other countries, including the United States. However, it has remained to being popular among Star Wars fans. Star Wars fans love this song. I love it too myself. I really feel that it really fit the mood. John Williams created a song. I really don't feel like it's a disco song. Maybe he had that in mind. I really do feel because of the way the melodic line works and of course being in Huttese, it does have that out of time and place, out in another galaxy type of mood to it. So I really feel like it really fit the scene. Now, again, it has been recorded in many different arrangements. One of the arrangements was by the I think he's Italian, Mecco. Mecco did a lot of dance mixes of the Star Wars themes. He did, of course, the original Star Wars song back in the late 70s, which became extremely popular among clubs at the time period. And then he did a version of The Empire Strikes Back and also the Darth Vader theme, a whole bunch of other themes, and he actually did a a disco dance mix of this song as well. That one there, I do feel like has more of a disco sound than the other versions. It's kind of interesting that they're calling it a disco because this is 1983, which means it was composed in 1982, probably most likely 1982. And the thing is, by that time, disco was already fading away. There was the more of the at the time period, there was more of the alternative rock at the time. So disco was kind of fading out. So I never felt like this was a very disco type of a song. But nevertheless, it does fit in the film. Unfortunately, um, George Lucas did not feel the same way, which we'll talk about in just a moment. I'd like to take a look at the lyrics first. Leptinique is translated roughly to the words "work it out." On the left-hand side here, you see it in Huttese. On the right-hand side is an English translation. I'm not going to even begin to try to pronounce the Huttese language. I do it secretly, privately, among my friends and peers, but I won't do it to the public because I'm not going to make a fool of myself. Um, but the English translation would be very easy. If you look at the chorus, work it out. You've got to move your soul, work it out. You've got to feel the heat, work it out. You've got to move your soul. So I guess you can say it is kind of disco, as in the words, because of that actually does sound like something that Gloria Gaynor would sing. But nevertheless, it is a really interesting song that I really felt like it belonged in the film. It had a very nice mood to it. But when the special editions came out, it was replaced by a song called Jedi Rocks. George Lucas felt that Leptinique was dated and that it didn't serve the film. So we replaced it with this song, which was composed by Jerry Hay. Now, I'm not saying anything bad about Jerry Hay, I just don't feel like the song fits the film. Um, John Williams knows what fits in the films. They're his films. He knows exactly. Source music, leitmotif, underscore, mood music, you name it. John Williams knows how to make the music for Star Wars. And this year, he did not participate in the composing or the arranging. I believe the song was written Huttese as well. Um, Now, although the special edition scenes I really felt was brilliant, um, I liked the fact that they added the dancers. Not really that little creature there that, he was kind of irritating, but the dancers fit very well. And of course, the extra band members fit very well. And I felt like that was brilliant. But the song just seems out of place. I really feel like the song sounds like a 1990s rock song. There's that little jazz solo with the harmonica, which is kind of weird with the harmonica. But but the song itself, which is about a minute long, I mean, it sounds like something that Chumbawamba would sing, which is a very 1990s rock band and sound. So it is dated in itself, if you think about it, because you're not going to hear a rock song of this type, this day and age. Um, Maybe perhaps now that Disney has bought the franchise, they may replace it with the original, or something or another to bring back the original, because I really feel like the original with the added footage would really work very well. Um, but that's my take on it. It just doesn't fit. It's my biggest criticism about these special editions. Most people feel like the added scenes were, they were being critical about the added scene with Jabba the Hutt in A New Hope, and all the CGIs and everything. Those don't bother me. Those really don't bother me at all. What bothers me is the sound. The sound is very important, and to me, the music becomes very important because of it is part of the film more than the visuals being CGI. So that is the song. Let's go to the next source music. Again, it's in Return of the Jedi. Now, the Ewoks, their leitmotif has a very primitive sound. The orchestra makes a lot of primitive sounds, and obviously, them being a primitive pagan tribe, their music is going to be very primitive with primitive drums and singing and everything. Now, in the scene when they first come to the Ewok village, uh, they are playing drums in the background. It's not really um, a song. It's just they're playing tribal music. That's source music in itself. But at the very end, we have what is known as the Ewok celebration, which has a song written in Ewokese. John Williams composed this in the style of primitivism, and it really fit in that scene because, well, there were more Ewoks there, and they were celebrating along with the rebels. And so, therefore, what kind of musical instruments and group you had? You had this primitive group. So that made sense, having an Ewok celebration, an Ewokese type of sound to the source music. And it fit very well as far as I'm concerned. What I'm critical about, again, yes, it's the sound rather than the CGI or any added footage, is the replacement in the special edition, the victory celebration. The added footage, Lucas added in the other cities or planets in the galaxy celebrating the word has passed along the galaxy that the Empire has fallen. So everyone is celebrating, and there's also a sneak preview of Coruscant and Naboo, which is on this slide. Which we've never seen before. They show scenes of Cloud City and Tatooine, which we know, but we never knew what Coruscant or Naboo looked like. Matter of fact, we didn't even know what Naboo was at the time. We knew what Coruscant was from the expanded universe, but we didn't know what Naboo was. We didn't know that was Padme's home planet, or even the Emperor's home planet. So those were added on, and in order to fit with the new added scenes, Lucas wanted a new source music, if you call it source music, because at this point, it's literally on the line of source music versus an underscore. I think it's is source music. It has to be source music because of its doesn't sound like an underscore. But the problem is the original scenes of the Ewoks looks this primitive, but the victory celebration is not a primitive song. It's just a whole bunch of la la la's to a melodic line with music in the background. And that doesn't fit with the original footage. Maybe it fits with the new ones, but again, it's kind of anticlimactic. It's not bursting. It's not becoming grand in order to finish an entire trilogy. I think there needed to have been something more grand, and this was not really grand. Perhaps maybe John Williams might go back and recompose something new if they ever decide to go back and fix it, maybe to making it something more grand. Um, of course, this was done before he composed the prequels, and the prequels, there's the Battle of the Heroes, which is a grand sounding underscore actually, and the Duel of the Fate, which is an underscore rather than source music, very grand. Maybe something like that. He can, go back and compose something like that. Now, in A New Hope, at the very last scene, there was no source music. It was actually that throne room march, which the first part is the Force theme, and then there's a second part of it. Now that is an underscore. It seems like it's source music because of, well, when you're celebrating and you're about to give um, medals to a couple of heroes, you're going to have music in the background. But if you notice in that scene, there is no band. There is nothing musically speaking whatsoever. So that we don't know if it's source music or not. But that was grand. It did sound grand. So perhaps maybe if that was used instead of Victory Celebration would have been a better ideal because that has a more grand sound to it and it could wrap it up very well. So there you go. We have the source music to the original trilogy.